The sky was dark. Thick clouds moved like waves above the icy planet. Wind howled through the empty mountains. Then, suddenly, something broke the silence. A spaceship tore through the clouds, on fire. It fell fast, crashing into the snowy ground with a loud boom. Smoke and fire rose from the wreck. Inside the ship, everything was broken. Wires sparked, lights blinked, and alarms screamed. From the wreckage, a man crawled out. His name was James Carter, a pilot from Earth. Blood ran down his forehead, and his leg was hurt, but he was alive. He looked around. "Where am I?" he whispered. There was only snow, mountains, and silence. James grabbed his emergency pack and limped into the snow. The cold bit into his skin. Every breath turned into white mist. The planet was dead silent. No birds, no animals, not even wind anymore. Just the sound of his boots crunching snow. He found a small cave and set up a heat pod, a small tent-like shelter that produced warmth and light. He sat inside, shivering, trying to stop the bleeding on his leg. "Command, this is Carter." He said into his broken radio. "I crashed. Coordinates unknown. No sign of life. I need extraction." No answer. Only static. He sighed and leaned back. The heat pod gave some comfort, but outside, the cold felt alive, like it was watching him. Then, he heard something, a whisper, very soft. Very strange. He stood up quickly and grabbed his flashlight. "Hello?" he called. No answer. He stepped out into the snow. The whisper came again, this time a little louder. It wasn't from the radio. It was coming from the mountains. James followed the sound, slowly, carefully. His boots slipped on ice. His breath got shorter. But the whisper pulled him forward. At the edge of a cliff, he stopped. And there, he saw her. A figure sat in the snow, her back against a rock. She was small, thin, and shaking. Long white hair covered her face. Her skin was blue, not from cold, but natural. Not human. James froze. An alien. She looked weak. Her body shivered, her arms hugged her knees, and she made no move to attack or run. Slowly she raised her head. Her eyes met his. They were large, glowing slightly, and full of fear. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft, almost broken. "Will you share your warmth with me?" "Human?" James blinked. He didn't know what to say. Was this real? Was this a trap? But something in her voice felt true, sad, cold, alone. He looked at her. Her hands were turning white. She couldn't survive much longer out here. James took a breath and stepped closer. He knelt down and opened his thermal blanket. "Here," he said. "Take this." She hesitated, but then slowly crawled toward him. She wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. Her body shook less now. Her skin was freezing, but her eyes never left his. He helped her stand. She was light, almost too light, like a bird. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded slowly. Together they moved back to his heat pod. The snow fell harder now. The wind picked up again. But inside the pod, it was quiet and warm. She sat near the heater, her hands open to the small flame. James gave her water and a small food bar. She sniffed it, then ate carefully. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked at him, eyes blinking slowly. Then she said, "Siren." "Siren," he repeated. "I'm James," she nodded. "James. You came from the sky." "Yes, I crashed here," he said. "Where are we?" Siren looked down. This world was once home. Now it is only cold. James didn't understand fully, but he saw the sadness in her face. Her voice was soft, and she spoke slowly, like she was still learning his language. "Are there others?" he asked. "Your people?" She looked away. Her hands shook again. "No," she whispered. "I am the last." James felt a strange pain in his chest. He was a soldier, a pilot, trained for war, not for this. He stared at the small flame between them. Siren stared at it too. After a long silence, she said something that made his heart stop. "They hunt the warm ones." James looked up. "What do you mean?" Siren closed. Her eyes, the dark things, they feel heat. They follow it. They feed on it. The flame flickered. Outside, the wind screamed again, but this time, it wasn't just wind. Something else was out there. Watching. Listening. And it was coming. It began with a dream. James stood in a field of white flowers. The sky above was purple, with two suns. Slowly rising, wind moved gently across the land. It was quiet, peaceful. Then he saw her. Siren stood among the flowers, her white hair blowing in the wind. She looked different here, stronger, brighter, and no longer shivering. Her eyes glowed like small stars. "Is this your world?" James asked. She turned and smiled. "No," she said. "This is a memory." The wind stopped. The flowers turned to frost. And then, the sky screamed. Dark shadows fell from above, covering the land. The suns vanished. The ground cracked. The flowers froze, and Siren's smile faded. James woke up, gasping for air. It was still dark outside the heat pod. Snow tapped against the thin walls. The small heater hummed softly. He turned to check on Seren. She was curled up, still asleep, holding the thermal blanket tight. Her breathing was slow, her face calm. She looked fragile, but peaceful. James sat back, confused. That dream. It felt real, he whispered. He shook his head. He didn't believe in magic or strange alien powers, but something about Siren was different. That dream. It was not his own. Later, when Siren woke, her voice was stronger. "You saw it," she said quietly. "The memory." James looked at her. "That was real?" She nodded. "I shared it with you. I'm sorry. It happens when I sleep, sometimes." He was still trying to understand. "You can show memories in dreams?" Siren nodded again. "Only with people I trust." James didn't reply for a moment. He looked at the broken equipment in the corner, the blinking radio, the empty food packs. How long can we survive here? He asked himself. Siren looked outside. Not long. The cold will grow deeper. And the feeders, they are close. James stood up. Then we need to move. Find shelter, better supplies. Siren looked weak but determined. "There is a place," she said. "Far in the mountains. An old station. My people built it before the fall." James looked at her carefully. "Will we be safe there?" She didn't answer, but James nodded anyway. "Then we go." The journey was slow. James used the last of his emergency heat packs to warm their clothes. Siren could barely walk at first, so he helped her. They moved through the snow, over sharp rocks and icy hills. The air got thinner, colder, but they didn't stop. Along the way, Siren began to speak more. Her voice was soft but steady. "My people were once warm inside," she said. "Not just body, but spirit. We gave warmth to each other. It was our way." James listened, curious. "What happened?" he asked. "We opened our world to others," she said. "One ship came, then more. Then something else came with them. Cold that hates warmth. It spreads, like sickness." James thought for a moment. "The feeders?" She nodded. "Yes. They don't kill like humans do. They take your heat, your thoughts, your soul, until nothing is left." They reached a ridge. Below them was a long, narrow valley. At the far end, built into the rock, was a dark metallic structure. Broken, buried in snow. "That's it," Siren said. James raised his binoculars, looks half destroyed. "But it might have power cells, food, shelter." They started down, but halfway, Siren stopped. Her body froze. James turned. "What is it?" She didn't speak. Just pointed to the snow ahead. Something was moving. Long, thin shapes, almost invisible, slithered across the white. No legs, no sound, just ... Shadows in the snow. "Feeders," she whispered. "They don't see like us, but they feel heat. If we run, they'll know." James whispered back, "Then we stay cold." He turned off his heat emitter. Siren followed. The cold hit him instantly, like knives on his skin. But they kept walking, slow and silent. The shadows didn't follow, not yet. By evening, they reached the station. The door was half buried, frozen shut. James used his emergency cutter to melt the ice. The door opened with a loud hiss. Inside, it was dark, dead, but the air was warmer. Protected from the wind, they sealed the door. James found a backup generator and connected it to the heater panel. Lights flickered on. The room was small, broken, but safe. They sat on the floor. Siren leaned against the wall, breathing fast. "Thank you," she whispered. James gave her water. "We're not safe yet." She looked at him. "You shared your warmth again. You don't have to." He looked back at her. "I don't leave people behind." Siren closed her eyes. "You are not like the others," James chuckled. "You haven't met many humans, have you?" She opened her eyes. "Only one." And he answered me with his heart. Outside, the wind screamed again. But inside, the warmth was real. Silence had weight here, heavy, pressing, almost alive. The station creaked. In the wind, snow slid across the metal roof in slow hisses. Pipes groaned, like they were remembering something. Something old. Something buried. James sat near the faint glow of the heater, cleaning the blood from his sleeve. His leg was healing, but his mind wasn't quiet. Siren stood across the room, staring at a dark wall. Not moving, not blinking. "Siren?" he asked. Softly. She didn't answer. Her hand was touching a black panel, smooth, frozen, lifeless. But something in her posture was wrong. James stood up and stepped closer. "What is it?" Finally her voice came. "This wall remembers pain." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned. Her eyes shimmered with light and sadness. "This was a nursery for young ones," she said, "before the dark came." James looked around again. The room did seem strange. Small beds pushed aside, strange toys frozen in place, tiny chairs knocked over. He hadn't noticed before. He took a deep breath. "What happened here, Siren?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she placed her hand on his chest, and once again, the dream took him. James opened his eyes to screams. He stood in this same room, but alive, warm, glowing with golden light. Alien children laughed, running between glowing pillars. Soft music played. The air smelled like flowers. Then, a crack, a shadow oozed under the door. Long, slow, and hungry. The lights flickered. The children stopped. And then, the screaming began. James tried to run forward, to stop it, but he couldn't move. He was only watching. Frozen in time. Useless. The shadows stretched into the room like black fog. Wherever they touched, life stopped. The children fell, eyes wide, still breathing, but silent. Cold. Then everything turned dark. James woke with a loud gasp. He was on the floor, covered in sweat despite the cold. Siren sat beside him. Her eyes were wet. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You needed to see." James wiped his face. "What were those things?" "They feed," she said. "On warmth, on emotion. Not blood, not flesh. They took my people's soul, not their bodies." He stared at her. "And you? You survived?" She nodded. "I hid for days, then weeks, alone." James stood slowly, heart pounding. "Why?" "Me? Why trust me?" Siren looked at him. "Because when I asked, you didn't run. You gave warmth. Suddenly, the station lights blinked, then died. A deep, unnatural sound echoed through the halls, not mechanical, not alive. Somewhere in between, James grabbed his flashlight and scanned the walls. "I'll check the power core," he said. Siren caught his hand. "Don't go alone. Not now." James looked at her. "Do they know we're here?" Siren didn't blink. "They feel us. They wait in the cold." Together, they moved down a dark hallway. The metal beneath their feet creaked. With every step, ice-covered parts of the walls like veins. James reached the control room and opened the backup panel. Wires were torn. Something had already been here. He felt it before he saw it. The cold. Not normal cold. This was different. It pulled at him, not just his body, but his memories, his warmth, his joy. He turned fast. A shadow moved across the wall. Long, thin, soundless. "Siren!" He shouted, but she was already chanting, softly, in her own language. A faint light glowed in her chest, spreading across her skin like tiny fireflies. The shadow paused. And hissed. James didn't wait. He slammed the emergency breaker. The generator rebooted with a low rumble. Lights flickered on. The shadow recoiled, shrinking, but before it vanished, James saw it clearly. A face, twisted, hollow, familiar. And human. Back in the safe room, James sat, shaking. "That thing," he said. "It had eyes like mine." Siren didn't speak for a long time. Then quietly she said, "Some of the first ones were not from my world." James looked at her. Slowly. "You mean they were human?" She nodded. "Your people came with light, but one ship brought something else. Something broken, a sickness. The darkness took them first." James felt the blood drain from his face. "We brought this? Not all of you," she said. "Just one was enough." They sat in silence. Then Siren whispered something James didn't understand. He leaned closer. "What did you say?" She looked at him with deep, burning eyes. "They don't just feed on warmth. They feed on love. Fire should not exist here. Not on a world of snow, silence, and death." And yet, beneath the mountains, something still burned. Ancient, sleeping, waiting. Siren led James through the ice-covered ruins. Her steps were slow, but her path was sure. Her breath shimmered in the freezing air, but her eyes glowed with quiet purpose. James followed closely. His legs still ached, but something else moved inside him now. Not pain, not fear. Hope. They had left the broken station behind at dawn. No more hiding. No more waiting. Now, they searched for the core temple, the last place where warmth had once lived. "Tell me again," James said, as they climbed a narrow path carved into the cliffside. "What is this place?" Siren paused, her hand brushing an old stone covered in ice. Strange symbols glowed beneath the frost. "It is the heart of my people," she whispered. "The fire they gave to the world." James touched the stone too. It felt warm, though the wind bit at his fingers. How could fire survive here? He asked. Siren looked at him. "Because it is not just heat," she said. "It is memory, spirit. It is what we loved." Before the cold came, hours passed. The path grew darker. Snow turned to ice, and ice to smooth black stone. Then the wind stopped. James noticed it first. "Listen," he said. There was no wind, no sound, only silence. Siren stepped forward. Her voice echoed, "We're here." They stood before a great wall of ice, smooth as glass. Strange golden veins pulsed. Inside it, like it was alive, Siren raised her hand and whispered ancient words. The wall cracked and melted. Behind it, a doorway opened. They entered the core temple. It was enormous. A vast chamber stretched before them, filled with soft golden mist. Tall pillars lined the walls, glowing faintly. At the center stood a huge machine, circular, like a heart, covered in vines of crystal and rust. James took a breath. It smelled warm, sweet, like spring. "This place is alive," he said. Siren nodded. "It once gave heat to the whole planet. But now it sleeps." James walked around the machine. He saw handprints in the dust, small ones, like children. Symbols carved into the floor glowed faintly as he stepped over them. "How does it work?" he asked. Siren looked tired now. "It links to us, to our energy, our feelings. That's how my people warmed the world, with connection." James stared at the glowing core. "You powered a machine with emotion?" She nodded, "With love, with unity." But when fear grew, the fire faded, and the shadows came. He stepped closer. "Can we restart it?" She hesitated. "Maybe, but it will ask for something. A gift." As they prepared the machine, something shifted. A tremble in the walls. James turned. "Did you feel that?" Siren's eyes widened. "We're not alone." The mist began to twist. And from the shadows, she appeared, the feeder queen. Tall, draped in black mist, with a hollow face, no eyes, no mouth, just endless cold. Around her floated broken pieces of metal, bone, and crystal. Her voice was not sound. It was inside their minds. Warmth. "Must die." James grabbed his rifle. It did nothing. Siren stood tall. Her skin shimmered again, glowing from within. "She cannot be killed by weapons," she said. "Only by what she hates." "What does she hate?" Siren looked at James. "Connection." Then she stepped into the core. The machine woke. A hum filled the temple. Light poured from the walls. Symbols flared across the floor. The feeder queen screamed. Her shadow lashed out, but it could not pass the light. Siren's body floated, surrounded by glowing fireflies. James stepped forward too. The light touched his chest, and it burned. Not pain, but memory. Everything he had loved. Everything he had lost. His parents. His brother. The girl he once held on a summer night before war. And now, "Siren," he stepped beside her. The fire grew. Together, they reached out and touched the machine. A wave of golden fire exploded outward. The temple shook. The shadows shrieked and vanished. The queen melted into light. Above the ground, across the snow, across the world, warmth returned. The wind calmed. The ice cracked. The sky turned soft orange. The planet breathed. Inside the temple, James collapsed. His skin burned with heat he didn't understand. Siren knelt beside him, her eyes bright. "You gave too much," she whispered. James smiled. Weakly, "You said, the fire needs love." She held him close. "And you answered," she whispered, "with your heart. Fire is life. But too much fire burns." James lay still beneath the golden light of the core. His face was pale, covered in sweat. His chest rose slowly, like each breath was borrowed. Siren knelt beside him, hands shaking. She pressed her forehead to his. "Stay," she whispered. "Please stay." The great heart of the temple pulsed behind them, alive again, glowing with gentle waves of light. Outside, the snow began to melt. The wind no longer screamed. But inside the chamber, there was silence. Siren closed her eyes and reached inward, into the bond. She found him in memory. Not in his voice, or his body, but in warmth. She saw flashes of Earth. A young James building a model ship with his father. A teenage James staring at the stars. An older James lost in war. Until the day his ship fell into her world. Siren wept. Not for pain, but for beauty. "This is what made him strong," she whispered. "He carried fire all along." James woke in flickers. He opened his eyes slowly, his body weak, but something felt different. He wasn't cold. His skin was warm, warmer than it should have been. A golden glow moved faintly under his veins, like pieces of the core still burned inside him. What happened? He asked, his voice dry. Siren smiled, her tears still fresh. You changed the world, she said. And now it has changed you. James sat up dizzy. I feel strange. She touched his hand. His body was still human, but not fully. Something inside him pulsed with the same energy as the core. His cells were changing, adapting. You are becoming like us, Siren said softly. James blinked. Am I dying? No, she whispered. You're being reborn. They stayed in the temple for 3 days. The feeders were gone. The cold had softened. The air now smelled like earth, not ice. James healed slowly, not with medicine, but with warmth. Siren taught him how to quiet his thoughts, how to breathe with the energy of the world, how to listen to life itself. He began to understand her language without speaking. He could feel the memories in the stones. He could even light small fires with his hands, not with fuel, but with feeling. You're not just human anymore, she said. James smiled. Then what am I? Siren didn't answer. She only took his hand and whispered, alive. But peace never lasts forever. On the morning of the 4th day, a sound echoed across the sky, a deep metallic hum. James ran outside the temple. The sky was clear. The snow had cracked, revealing patches of soil and green. Then he saw it, a human rescue ship, breaking through the clouds, headed straight for the old crash site. They found me, he whispered. Siren stood beside him, silent. They'll land soon, he said. They'll take me home. Siren looked down. Is that still your home? James looked at her. I don't know anymore. He turned to her fully. Come with me. Her eyes filled with light, but also sorrow. I can't, she said. Your world is too loud, too fast. I wouldn't survive. James stepped closer. Then I'll stay. She smiled softly. You're still changing. You might not have a choice. They stood there in silence, watching the ship grow closer. Inside the temple, the core pulsed gently. James touched it one last time. It responded with a deep hum, like it knew him now. I was sent here to survive, he said. Siren smiled. You were sent here to remember. Remember what? She stepped forward, placed a hand on his heart. That warmth is not weakness. It's your greatest strength. As the rescue team landed, they found James waiting, alone. Siren had vanished into the mist. They ran to him, checking his vitals, scanning his body. Something was wrong. His heat signature was off. His DNA was shifting. But he was alive. Carter, one officer said, you've been missing for weeks. What the hell happened here? James looked at the melting snow, at the rising sun, at the hills where the feeders once fed. He just smiled. I answered someone, he said, with my heart. James sat in silence as Earth rose into view. It should have felt like home. But it didn't. The stars outside the window were familiar. The hum of the rescue ship felt routine. The crew spoke in quick, clinical voices, but James? He felt like a shadow of himself, not in body, but in soul. His skin still held a quiet glow beneath the surface. The warmth from the core still pulsed faintly inside him. But something was missing. Seren. And the last ember of her world burned. Quietly in his heart. Vitals are stable, said the med officer, scanning James for the 3rd time. No fever. No infection. But these readings, she paused. Sir, his biology's not entirely human anymore. James didn't respond. He stared out the window, remembering the core's light, the temple walls. Her voice. Subject may have undergone cellular adaptation due to prolonged alien exposure, another officer noted. Should we isolate him? No, James said calmly. They all turned. I'm not sick, he said. I'm something in between. That night, he dreamed again. Not like before, not shared. Not from Seren. This was his dream. He stood in a burned forest. The trees turned to ash. The wind was still. The sky was pale. In the center stood Siren, glowing but distant, her eyes full of silence. James ran to her, but no matter how close he came, he couldn't touch her. "You left," he said. Her voice came like a breeze. "You weren't meant to stay." "But I wasn't meant to forget," he replied. She smiled. "Sadly, you still carry me." Then she faded, like smoke in morning light. James woke up, breath shaky. The ship neared Earth orbit. He sat up, heart pounding. He couldn't shake the feeling. This wasn't just a dream. Something was calling him. No, something was breaking. Suddenly, an alarm blared. "Sir, we're detecting a heat spike near the stasis bay." The pilot shouted. They ran down the corridor. James knew before they arrived. It was him. The core's energy inside him, the last ember, was unstable. He collapsed against the wall as flames rose from his hands, not burning, but glowing. Gold, not fire from fuel, but fire from memory. "I thought it faded," he whispered. "But it's still alive. Shut it down." One crew member shouted that, but James stood. "No," he said. "This fire is not dangerous." He looked at them calm. "It's trying to go home." James made a choice. He asked for a drop pod. One designed for planetary descent, fast, direct. "You're not cleared for exit," the officer warned. "I wasn't cleared to survive either," James said. He climbed inside alone. Set the coordinates. Manually. Back to the world. They rescued him from as the pod sliced through the clouds once more. He watched the sky turn from black to pale blue, to soft gold. The core's planet had changed. The snow was melting. The trees were returning. Life was waking. And at the center of it all, the temple pulsed faintly in the horizon. But Siren was not waiting at the gate. She was nowhere. He wandered through the thawing valley. For hours. The place felt different, like a song half sung. He stood in the heart of the core, alone. And then he saw it, a single ember, floating in the air. It danced, golden, like a star fallen from the sky. James reached out. It touched his hand, and warmth filled him. Then a voice, not outside, inside. "You are the last fire now, James. But I'm not ready," he thought. "You already chose." The ember entered his chest. The glow returned, not to burn him, to become him. He looked at his reflection in the temple's glass wall. Not quite human, not quite alien, something new. Siren was gone. But she had not left him. He was her echo, her ember, her answer. And across the galaxy, one world bloomed again. Because one man stayed. Because one man didn't fear warmth. Because when she whispered, "Will you share your warmth with me, human?" he answered. With his heart. It began with silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of peace. For the first time in years, the wind no longer howled. The snow no longer bit. The planet no longer cried. James walked through the quiet valley, where the snow had melted into streams, and tiny green shoots peeked through the softening ground. The sky, once gray and cold, now glowed a pale gold, like dawn stretched across the whole world. There was no Siren, but her world lived, and so did he. He built a small shelter on the mountainside, not from metal, but from stone and old tree roots. He didn't rush. He took his time, like the world did when it healed. Every night, he lit a small fire with his hands, not from wood, not from tech. But from the warmth inside him. The ember Siren left behind. It flickered gently, never large. He didn't need much heat now, because the cold no longer controlled him. One evening, as the sun dipped low, James stood on the ridge, watching light spill across the hills. He remembered her laugh, soft, rare. He remembered the way she used to stare at flames like they were alive. "Are you watching?" he whispered. No voice answered. But the flame in his palm pulsed. That was enough. Months passed. Then, the signal came. A soft beep from the old human unit James had buried under a tree. He dug it up, dusted it off, and stared at the blinking light. Earth command to Carter, respond. He hesitated, then pressed the button. This is Carter. Alive, changed. The voice on the other end paused. Your readings are off the charts. What is your condition? James smiled. Unclear, breathing, growing roots. Another pause. Do you need extraction? He looked across the hills where rivers now ran. No, he said. I need time. Another voice spoke, different, female, soft but formal. We received your earlier logs. The data on the core, the alien, the energy. James waited. We want to send a team, learn what happened. He thought for a long time, then said, you can come, but come gently. Don't bring guns. Bring seeds. The ship landed weeks later. 3 explorers stepped out. Scientists, peaceful, curious. James met them alone, not as a soldier, not as a survivor, but as a firekeeper. They asked him questions. About Siren, about the machine. About the light, he told. Them stories instead. About snow, about fear. About connection. About a voice that once whispered, will you share your warmth with me, human? And how he said yes with his whole being. More came after, not armies, not governments, but quiet ones, people who had lost their warmth. They listened. They learned. They planted. And slowly, life bloomed. The ice retreated. Villages formed, small, glowing, peaceful. Children ran where silence once ruled. James never left. He aged slowly now. The fire inside him kept him warm, and kept him other, but he didn't mind. He became the myth, the whisper, the answer. They called him the Flame Walker, but he just called himself James. Years later, on a soft spring night, a child asked him, is the fire real? He smiled, knelt, and opened his hand. A small golden ember floated above his palm. It's not just real, he said. It's yours now. The child watched in awe as it drifted down and settled in their chest. Warm, gentle, alive. James looked at the stars. He didn't need to hear her voice to know. Siren was here. In the warmth. In the world. In the new flame.